Hi, I'm J. Rachel Etterton.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of comics' greatest superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Jay and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X-books that come out each week.
Now this week, or each 2 weeks in this case,
yes.
We are looking today at the books of August 10th and August 17th, 2016.
Accursed biology. We were sick. I hate being sick. Being sick is terrible.
Yes. I propose that we avoid it in the future.
Yes, we should avoid the legacy virus and those nanosentinels that get into your bloodstream and the Terrigen cloud that would give us the Mpox and also the cold that Magma got that one time that kept her home from a mission in New Mutants. Do you remember that?
I mean, people got colds all the time in New Mutants.
I guess that's true. Those kids, no immune systems. Anyway, let's talk about some comics.
We'll look at last week's books first and start with All New X-Men number 12. Written by Dennis Hopeless, with pencils by Mark Bagley, inks by Andrew Hennessy, and colors by Nolan Woodard. This is, I think, the issue that we've kind of been waiting for a while, the one where Laura and Warren finally talk.
Yes, we get so much good soap opera. I love soap opera with teenagers. I grew up on New Mutants, can you tell? But this does it really well.
It does it really well, and it also brings back something that I've been really missing that was one of my favorite things about Bendis's All New. And that we hadn't seen as much of here, which is Scott and Laura's weird, awkward friendship, which is tremendously important to me. I am really, really invested in these imaginary teenagers.
Seriously, and Hopeless writes them beautifully. And I gotta say, the whole Scott being forced to slow down because he's injured and being forced to actually take the time to talk to his friends, especially Laura, that works really well for me. I really enjoy that.
Well, that and seeing again reflected the thing that was sort of the basis of their friendship to begin with, which was recognizing things in each other that they didn't tend to see reflected in very many other people.
Right, I think at one point it's Laura who tells Scott, I think you're almost as weird as I am. And that's what works, because they were both raised for these very specific purposes, and they're both trying to figure out if they can be more than that. And so those parallel journeys just make for an awesome friendship.
Well, and there's also just a lot that's very specific and individual about how they interact with the world and with other people, and the way they prioritize and interact with information. And I mean, and even things as basic as the thing with the hugs and the Bendis run, and I'm not going to go into this in detail because, look, there are X-Men stories that I care about narratively and analytically, and then there are X-Men stories that I just have a lot of, and things that I just have a lot of feelings about. And Scott and Laura's friendship is largely in the latter category. There are spaces in the former, but mostly it's just really important to me for a lot of really personal reasons that have very little to do with narrative fidelity.
Totally valid. But yeah, let's talk about the plot. So Laura gets sent out on all these missions by Scott, these sort of unclaimed missions because she's going stir crazy, and keeps getting there a little bit too late. Like, you know, as soon as she's trying to take out, say, a resurrected Cameron Hodges smile face labeled train, which is trying to suck up the Terrigen cloud to weaponize it. I love Hopeless's villains sometimes. Someone else has gotten there first and she doesn't know what's up.
And what she discovers specifically is that they've usually been burned out, razed to the ground. And what she finds is that it is in fact Warren who's been doing these things under the pretext of doing obnoxious rich kid socialite stuff that no one ever agrees to go with him on,
right.
That he's been using as excuses because he knows no one will want to go with him.
Yeah, and I like this. I like that we're coming back to some actual consequences from the Black Vortex storyline where he got those weird fiery wings and became his, ultimate super self. And that wasn't really addressed ever since then. Now it's finally coming to fruition, and it's starting to parallel a little bit both Laura's own character development and the whole Archangel thing with older Warren.
I really love the things that come to light here and the ways in which the two of them draw out both a lot of dysfunction and a lot of honesty in each other. Specifically the ways that Warren has been using the fact that Laura is the weird one and sort of the dysfunctional one, the one with a history of self-destructive activity, to keep the focus on her and off of what he's doing, and to keep his own focus off that. He's been offloading a lot of his own confusion and aggression and blaming it on, her being the one who they both know is screwed up, and I think not even realizing that he's doing it. And she, meanwhile, has been aggressively trying to be normal, and in doing so, coming across as even more off, as even more like she's hiding something, because she is. They're each kind of trying to be the version of themselves that they think the other needs to work their stuff out.
Right. And so getting a chance to see these two teenagers have a very adult conversation for, in some ways, the first time it's written so beautifully and it rings so true. And I mean, you mentioned you're invested in Scott and Laura, and I totally am too. But Laura and Warren, just, they make me so happy as a couple, whether they work out or not. Just seeing these kids have these feelings, try to, get close to somebody who's so different in external ways and so similar in internal ways that neither of them wants to admit. Like, this is the kind of soap opera that I keep coming back to X-Men for, and Hopeless is probably my favorite person who's done that in quite a long time.
Yeah, one of the things I come back to, one of the things that's true of a lot of my favorite stories, is that they're ones that show me characters I haven't cared much about in a new light. I remember talking about that with Lady Deathstrike with her Life After Logan story.
Oh, was that the one written by Marguerite Bennett?
Yeah,
that was good.
With the art by Marguerite Sauvage, and it was gorgeous, and it was just an amazingly good story. And in general, Dennis Hopeless's work with this team has left me feeling that way about Angel. He's a character who I've always sort of passively liked. Like, he's not one I aggressively don't want to see there, but he's never one who's really interested me that much. And this is really the first time I've really felt invested in him as a character in this version of him.
I would completely agree, yeah.
So there's one other thing that we should talk about, and I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, we shouldn't spoil it.
Which is the last page reveal. It's teased earlier in the issue, but who the big bad who's coming in is. Oh my God!
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all.
I'd worked it out very early in the issue. And it's definitely a character I was hoping Dennis Hopeless would have another opportunity to write. And I will leave it at that, because I don't want to spoil it, and you should see it, and you should have that OMG WTF moment when you switch to that page yourself. I'm not a fan of this version of the costume, but we'll go into that in more detail when we can actually talk about who it is.
Our second and final book for last week is Old Man Logan number 10, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Andrea Sorrentino and colors by Marcello Maiolo. So this is part 2 of our kind of Japan-themed flashback, flash-forward story that we've been going through for now.
Japan-based.
Yes, Japan-based more than Japan-themed. There are Japanese villains. They're these blind archer types, I'm assuming.
Yes, because they're in Japan.
Well, there you go. And it's an interesting chapter. I think I was expecting a little bit more from this one. There's a really cool premise, which is that Logan is climbing out of this well again and again and again and just getting shot full of arrows every time he tries to get to the top. And that's a really cool narrative tool. It could be a really cool metaphor for his own attempts to escape his past and inability to do so.
Yeah, the visual of Logan persevering in the face of inevitability. Just his main power being less his ability to go on the offensive than just his ability to keep pushing forward is something that, when it's well done, is always really effective. And I feel like Sorrentino really nails it here.
I would agree, yeah, both in terms of just drawing Logan himself, just that determination and weariness that he manages to get into Logan's face and body, and also some of the panel layouts. I've always enjoyed Sorrentino's panel layouts, and there's one 2-page spread in particular. There's just a grid of very small panels of, like, Logan's hands, reaching out for something, and his foot getting a foothold, and then just him getting shot again and again and again. And it just teases this feel of useless persistence that, again, thematically fits well.
It does a really good job of conveying time and rhythm, too, of just the sense of timelessness and just drudgery and effort, and the way things break down into just endless micro moments over and over and over when you're doing some kind of incredibly strenuous physical task.
And I wish we'd gotten more of that, because since this is such a potentially useful metaphor and such a visceral, physical thing to read through and to look at, the fact that Logan basically just grits his teeth and then climbs up despite getting shot with a bunch of arrows and then attacks the dude at the end, that almost felt too easy. I wanted this to be more grueling. I wanted this to be more tortuous and torturous. And so the fact that, we didn't get enough of that, like, I'm not saying I specifically enjoy seeing characters suffer, but I think that's what should have happened in a story like this one. As far as the other half of the story, as usual, we get flashbacks to our future / Logan's past. That's always weird to describe. And what did you think? I think you mentioned you liked his dynamic with Maureen a little better this time, Maureen being his wife.
It's always kind of nice seeing Logan's paternalism bite him in the ass, basically.
There is that, yeah, as far as him not telling Maureen what's up and then that
or
going
that he
badly.
has powers. Which is ridiculous. Why would you not do that?
I mean, I get it. He's been very traumatized by anything related to when he was a superhero, so I get that.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you and someone else are allegedly partners in a struggle for survival, you let them know what assets are at your mutual disposal.
Well, yes, Logan's a terrible partner. Don't date Logan. No one should date Logan. Don't do that.
He's not just a terrible partner. He's terrible at seeing the people he's with as partners rather than sidekicks.
That's actually a very good point. But I think we see it a little bit closer here than we have before when he's forced to reveal to Maureen what's up. But still, the visual that we keep coming back to in Sorrentino's art, every time things get really hairy, I mean, except for Logan himself, he's always hairy, the close-up of his fist clenching and the claws not coming out, that right there, it's poignant every time, knowing what's coming in Logan's future, knowing the fact that Maureen's gonna die and his kid's gonna die and everything is gonna go to hell, and that maybe he could have stopped it if he'd given in. It's rough and it's just wrenching, and that's what this book absolutely should be.
With that, I believe we're on to this week's comics, starting with All New Wolverine number 11, written by Tom Taylor, penciled by Iguara, inked by Walden Wong, and colored by Michael Garland. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we shouldn't give it away. Again, last page reveals, but the last page reveal...
Oh man.
Oh man.
Oh man.
We'll see where this goes. I trust Tom Taylor, I think. So I'm optimistic, maybe?
Jonathan acquits himself admirably.
Jonathan the Wolverine does acquit himself admirably. He bites a dude's ankle, and he's very fierce.
Very fierce.
Yes. Okay, right, so, All New Wolverine.
Man.
Yes. But there's more than that last page.
There is. I like this, and I really love seeing how this group of characters intersects with Civil War II. Because for most characters, it's not that interesting and it feels forced. For this group, for Old Man Logan, who's come from a screwed up alternate future.
That very specifically is not going to happen. That's been made clear in his own book.
For Laura, who was very much raised to be a specific thing, and with a sense of absolute inevitability, and is just now trying to break from that.
And with Gabby, whose entire purpose as a character is to show, what it's like when your ticket to the future has not been punched, that she can be whatever she wants to be. Yeah, that's how you do cool things with the whole Minority Report thing Civil War II has been doing.
And this is a very, very Minority Report feeling issue.
Yes, absolutely. Right down to the fact that the bad things that happen, it is implied, may not have happened at all had Captain America and the soldiers he was with not tried to prevent them from happening.
Is Captain America evil right now? I haven't been following a bunch of the non-X titles I've been following are so far removed from that I'm not really sure.
It's true. I think he still thinks he's Hydra, but the readers know that was kind of enforced upon him retroactively with the brainwashing thing. I don't know. But that does definitely color his role in this issue a little bit, because Captain America, he should be sympathetic. He should be a guy just trying to do his job and prevent bad things from happening, even if he feels that it's maybe not the right way of doing the right thing. And the Hydra thing just makes that a little less than it might be, I think.
I like the part when he busts through a bunch of walls.
Okay, that page is hilarious, chasing Laura and, Gabby and Logan, rather, through walls of various surprised people's apartments. I never get sick of that gag. When there's a chase and somebody, upends a fruit cart, and then this person chasing them, messes it up even more chasing them.
And, apologizes over their shoulder, and running through a room where a family's eating dinner, a room where a couple's in bed, and so forth.
Yeah. Speaking of action scenes, the fight scene between Laura and Captain America has such a cool sense of physicality to it.
It really
the fact
does.
that she cuts his shield off his arm, uses it as something to bounce off of, to do with a Chun-Li style helicopter kick and kick him in the face. It's just so beautifully staged. Iguara, I'm not really familiar with Iguara's art very much, but this certainly speaks well.
The sense of physical impact in the fight and in those panels is really, really effective.
Super rad. Agreed.
Yeah.
So, as far as the interaction between all the characters, I think my favorite thing was probably Gabby being super impressed and saluting for too long when Captain America shows up.
I liked it when Jonathan bit a guy.
Okay, that's entirely reasonable. Finally, we have Civil War II X-Men, or as I like to call it, SWITX-M, if you abbreviate it, number 3, written by Cullen Bunn, with art by Andrea Braccardo and colors by Jesus Abertov. So this series, actually, it's really growing on me. I think I mentioned to you in the car, Jay, when we were on our way over here to record, that it's scratching the mainstream X-Men story itch for me that not really any of the current books are doing. And for that, I appreciate it. It feels like it's a seamless addition to current canon. And while, yes, it is sort of a shoehorned in Civil War tie-in, I mean, most tie-ins to events are, there's some good stuff. There's some good character work. But I think most of all, I'm excited that Rachel Gray is actually in a comic and is actually characterized as a person with a personality. That does not happen very often in years that start with 2-0.
And in an interesting role. I mean, we mentioned characters who have a very vested interest in the concept of predestination. And she's another one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good thing to play with. The fact that the issue opens up onto her dark future when she was a hound working for Ahab, tracking down mutants, and then cuts to a city street where she sees people not caring about the deaths of mutants and focusing on, how cool the Inhumans are instead. That makes sense. That's a story hook. That's a reason that this character specifically should be here. She's not just, a power set that fits the fight scenes that the creators want to draw. She's a character who actually has a real stake in what's going on. And also a good foil for Magneto as he explains to her where he's coming from, and she's receptive to it.
Have you noticed that this team is looking more and more like the group from Years of Future Past?
I hadn't noticed that, but that's true. A lot of the same characters are showing up. Huh. Well, I'm okay with that. I thought Years of Future Past was stellar.
Oh, ditto.
So
I just think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I didn't realize that at all.
Yeah.
Speaking of characters, so Storm has not been as well served as I would have liked in this kind of round of X-Men since Secret Wars. She's been written a little bit out of character here and there, not quite the Aurora Monroe whose wisdom and passion and regality we've come to know and love. And I think this issue kind of gets her. There's a scene where she and Medusa talk, where, it becomes clear that the X-Men have been spying on the Inhumans, that both opposed teams of X-Men have been spying on the Inhumans. Medusa's pissed. Storm explains herself. They almost come to blows. And then they talk themselves down because this is not what leaders do. And that is the Aurora I've been missing. Yes, it fits Medusa as well, but I'm not nearly as invested in her because, not an X character.
Well, and given that this is a big event tie-in book, I love how deftly and pointedly Cullen Bunn lampshades the let's you and him fight now thing.
Right, exactly. Because that's one of my least favorite comic book superhero tropes is heroes fighting. Yes, it can be interesting. You can have ideological conflicts, okay, but it's just been so overused ever since the first Civil War did so well. And then there was Avengers versus X-Men, and Inhumans versus X-Men is coming up soon. Enough already. So many of these problems could be solved by just conversations, and that's what we have between Storm and Medusa right here. And I treasure that story decision. Thank you, Cullen Bunn, for that.
Well, and Storm specifically taking the diplomatic rather than the military approach is something that we've seen a bit less of with Extraordinary. And again, is nice seeing here because, it's very, very true to the character.
Not that she doesn't stab Callisto sometimes.
Well, you do what you gotta do, and I think part of Storm's strength as a character has always been that she is aware that there are contexts in which each is required. But part of what makes the moments when you stab Callisto effective is that they are few and far between. She's not Logan. She doesn't pop claws or pull a knife every time there's a conflict, and so the times when she does, you pay attention.
Totally, yeah. Talking about gray characters in a sort of literal sense, one little thing I appreciated about this issue is the way the colors are handled. Because one of the things we commented on before in the previous two issues is that the Extraordinary team, Storm's team, are colored in a very superheroic fashion. Even the black and white costumes are bright white and solid rich black.
Well, everyone was, and that was part of the problem.
Well, no, see, for me, I saw Magneto's team as being just a much more darker hued, and the settings they were drawn in being darker as well. And in this, Storm's team is starting to be darker, Magneto's team is starting to be brighter, and part of that is the shifting lineup of the teams, which I think also works thematically. Part of that's just the way the colors are being done. It's subtle, but it's nice, and I really like that. Okay, 4 books for 2 weeks. Which one's our favorite?
So our pick of, I suppose, the Fortnight is All New X-Men.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it's a great issue. It wraps up some good stuff. Brings back and brings full circle some themes and plot elements that we've been looking to see, and introduces a very exciting new character.
Totally.
What's our panel?
So there weren't any panels that stuck out as the most amazing panel of this 2-week period, but there were a few that we really liked, and this right here from All New Wolverine is one of them. Captain America has just been shot with a whole bunch of tranquilizer darts by Laura, and the way his body is drawn here just right down to the speech bubble's placement, down to the fact that his shield has fallen behind him, and that his left leg is not just in a kneeling position, but is also under him because he's falling a little bit to the left, that his hand is just sort of opened up and limp in front of him. It's just solid. You kind of feel what Steve must be feeling then. I mean, not entirely because you're not a super soldier and you don't have tranquilizer darts in you.
We hope.
You can imagine. Yeah, presumably.
Yeah, the weight and the physicality of it are really well conveyed.
Yeah, so well done, Iguara. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, but think it would be way better without our faces, check out our podcast, Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at explainthexmen.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher.
We've had to back off from Google Play for the time being because we were having some issues with episodes not appearing correctly / not appearing at all. We're hoping to get that resolved at some point, but for now you have lots of other options, so check those out.
And what have we got for them this week?
This upcoming episode, we are covering the 1989 annuals for X-Men, New Mutants, and X-Factor. There's some Atlantis Attack stuff, whatever. But most importantly, there are some really amazing backup stories.
Yes!
Featuring Jubilee, Boom Boom, and the Blues Brothers? So that's a thing. Check it out. It's a fun episode.
Now, if you like what you've seen here but think it would be way better not on video but in person, come see us at Rose City Comic-Con. It's in Portland, Oregon, September 10th and 11th. We will be at booth 815. I believe we're going to be hanging out with Al Ewing all weekend.
Writer
so you
of
can
New
also
Avengers,
come see
The
him.
Ultimates.
He's
Yep.
delightful. And we are going to be doing a live show on Saturday at noon. I've got a ton of other panels too. We're also going to have a party that weekend. Details to come eventually.
Indeed.
Sometime between now and the con.
We hope so anyway. But we shall see you there, and before then, we shall see you here on YouTube, or possibly embedded in our site. And in our podcast, you'll hear us, and there are all sorts of ways that we will come into your eyeballs and ears.
And all of those ways, from the podcast to the video reviews to convention appearances, are brought to you by our Patreon subscribers. We
Yes.
are an entirely listener-supported project. That's what lets us keep going, and it's what lets us stay ad-free. If you want to join the fine folks doing that, you can do it at the link either above or below this video, depending on whether you're watching it at YouTube or on our website.
Yes, indeed. We will, in the meantime, see you next time.
Ah, man, that reveal in All New.
Which all new? Because there were 2 reveals and 2 all news.
Both of them!